This conference will now be recorded.
All right. This is the July 15th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. We are on a virtual meeting. If you would like courtesy of the floor, you can put your question in the chat box and we will go through them as we approach the courtesy of the floor section of the meeting. If you are not speaking, it would be best to put all your microphones on mute, including we do get a lot of feedback when you're on both phone and computer. So we want to make sure that you can mute those microphones so that we don't get a lot of feedback and everybody can be heard. I think that is it. And without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you, President Morgan.
Thanks, Renee. I do also just want to note to everybody, if you do ask for courtesy of the floor, we will request that you provide your name and address for the record. So that's very important. You can put that in the chat as well. And then in addition to that, since the chat stays running throughout the whole meeting, we do ask that you're respectful to the presenters. I know you may have questions from maybe a previous presentation or one coming up. If you do, just hold off on entering those chats and comments back and forth to give the presenters the courtesy and the attention they deserve throughout the meeting. We will get to all your questions for sure. So thank you for that. All right, without further ado, I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 15th meeting of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. I'd ask that everyone please, or can we please first do a roll call, Renee, to see who's here this evening?
Sure. Commissioner Walk?
Here.
Commissioner Mobilio? I see him.
Here.
Yeah. Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Seton?
He's there. Joe?
I think he dropped off.
It wouldn't be a commissioners meeting without Joe having computer issues. So it's official. It's official meeting now.
It's official.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, there he
we
is.
sure can. Woo! All right.
And Commissioner Morgan.
See how long that's going to last.
Here. Thank you, Renee. I ask that everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to recognize our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Having feedback again. All right. I'd like to note that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded. The electronic record is kept until the minutes of the meeting are approved and destroyed if a request is not made to retain the electronic version at that time. With that being said, we're going to move right into our agenda for this evening. And before we get started, if somebody has their mic on, could you just put it on mute? There's a lot of feedback.
For this evening, before we get started, if somebody has their mic.
Okay. All right. So to get things started this evening, first on our agenda, we do have our meeting minutes for consideration and possible action. Our first set of meeting minutes for consideration this evening are the July 1st, 2020 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes. They are found on page 3 of the Commissioner's packet. Were there any questions or comments from the board on said July 1st meeting minutes?
Commissioner Morgan, I just have one correction on page 11. The conversation where Steve was talking about the leaf back, the number that he quoted for the price for it, it's listed as 20,000, but in the meeting, I remember he said 120,000 was budgeted. So that's just a minor correction, please.
Page 11.
11, the large paragraph where Steve is talking about the budgeted amount. I think it's about halfway through that paragraph.
Because I'm page 11 of the packet or page 11 of the minutes?
Of the minutes.
All right.
Sorry, I
That's
have
the
it.
difference. You got it? Okay.
Yeah, it's
I got it.
Excellent.
probably just a typo.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. That being said, do I hear a motion to move forward with accepting the July 1st meeting minutes with the correction to the dollar amount mentioned?
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, I think that was Commissioner Walk.
Yes.
All right. All in favor? Can we have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
All right. All in favor? Can we have a roll call vote, please, Renee? Commissioner Walk. Somebody has
Aye.
to go on mute.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton,
Commissioner Mobilio.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and Commissioner Morgan.
Aye, motion carries. July 1st, 2020 meeting minutes approved. Next this evening, for consideration and possible adoption, we have our Board of Commissioner meeting minutes, and these are the meeting minutes that had been tabled because there were some additional considerations. So they have some attachments for consideration this evening, and they are found on page 15 of the board's packet. Were there any questions or comments regarding the June 3rd meeting minutes? All right. I do have a comment about the meeting minutes for June 3rd. I just wanted to bring this back up to the board. I feel, we're going round and round with conversations about what goes in the minutes, what doesn't go in the minutes, and I'm concerned. Yeah, yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
go there. I was going to save this comment for when we were voting on the minutes, but I think now would probably be appropriate before you finish, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. That's fine.
So I'm just going to preface this by saying that I'm voting no on the approval of the minutes, and here's my explanation. When Commissioners Kelly, Walk, and I were elected, the drafting and approval of meeting minutes was a perfunctory process. Just like in every other neighboring municipality, minutes are intended not to provide a detailed recitation of every word spoken at a meeting, but rather to give a brief overview of the topics discussed at the meeting and the outcomes relative thereto. Commissioners Kelly and Walk know this because as they have mentioned on numerous occasions, they have been to many meetings even before becoming commissioners. Additionally, Attorney Zader briefed the three of us thoroughly on the issue and made clear the purpose of meeting minutes as Robert's Rules of Order dictate. Yet, Commissioners Kelly and Walk have demanded that the township staff include word for word their statements from June 3rd, 2020, where they requested my resignation, and they wanted this to be included in the meeting minutes from that date. This, despite their comments being available in both the video and audio recording from that date, and the issue itself having been thoroughly covered by the media. By doing so, Commissioners Kelly and Walk have made a decidedly nefarious decision to weaponize the meeting minutes for political and personal gain. The inclusion of their statements serves no legitimate purpose but self-aggrandizement and reflects not what is in the best interest of the public, but what is in their own self-interest. Undoubtedly, there will be those who defend Commissioners Kelly and Walk's request for inclusion of their statements as a brave quest for complete transparency. However, the need for thoroughly detailed meeting minutes, which I have advocated for, became moot when the township began recording the entirety of every commissioner's meeting and making those recordings easily available to the public. Put simply, even if our meeting minutes were no longer transcribed at all, there can be no rational argument that the township has not acted with the utmost transparency and convenience to the public to be made aware of the business the township conducts. While my private statement, for which me and my family, including my 3 children, received death threats, for which my business received negative online reviews and numerous phone calls threatening my staff and myself, that statement was ill-conceived and made off the cuff. However, Commissioners Kelly and Walk's statements were premeditated, malicious, and intended to stoke the flames of conflict for their own political and personal gain. Therefore, I vote no to the approval of the meeting minutes from June 3rd and hope in the future that Commissioners Kelly and Walk take into consideration the book of John, chapter 8, verse 7, which states, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Mobilio. As I had started to mention, my comments a bit broader and goes back to, we've gone round and round with minutes, not just the June 3rd minutes, but prior minutes for different meetings, even in addition to June 3rd's meeting. So this isn't, my comment isn't necessarily revolved around June 3rd. However, historically, the board has always done their minutes based on the guidance of Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act, and that was not a formal procedure, but just the way we've always done them, and they were thorough and complete. My concern is what I'm seeing happening is, we're seeing requests to put personal statements in there that were made during Board of Commissioner meetings, and the meeting minutes are not a personal platform to disseminate information for any commissioner, not myself, not any of the commissioners, and we lose focus of what the meeting is all about. The minutes are the official written record of a meeting, and they should not contain specific things or quotes in detail from every single commissioner, because it takes away from what we're really trying to accomplish by providing information back to the user reading the document. And you are correct, Commissioner Mobilio, with the video and audio now available, that information is available to anybody if they want to get into the details of what happened during a meeting. So I come back to the fact that, I really thought, a few meetings ago when we had some discussions about meeting minutes and how they were going to be conducted, I thought we were all on the same page, but I'm not sure we are. So I personally feel it's important to put some structure to this. So I'm going to suggest and put on the floor a motion that the board follows the guidance as it relates to meeting minutes presented by Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act moving forward. So it's clear and concise what the expectations are to our staff who is preparing said minutes. And that would be my recommendation, and that would be my motion I put out there for consideration to the rest of the board.
I'll second that motion.
If I may comment, Commissioner Morgan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I did. Yes, you can, Joe. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to make a comment. Thank you both for your comments. Commissioner Morgan, I think there's been a lack of consistency with the way minutes have been throughout. For example, on the June 3rd, no public comments were included, and then the following meeting, they were included. So if we want to set a policy for how that needs to be done moving forward, certainly that's something I believe we should look at as a board. But I guess as a commissioner, I'm wondering who determines what is included and isn't included. The reason that I asked for my statement to be included is because it was not, and certain other commissioners.
Nor quite honestly should it be, because it's a personal statement. I mean, over the years, Diane, with all due respect, I have made many personal statements on a variety of different subject matters, but those subject matters and those statements aren't verbatim in every set of minutes. That's not what they're meant for. It's not a personal platform to disseminate information. So I think we're losing sight of what the meeting minutes are for. And that's why I firmly believe we need to have some structure and guidance, which we've always followed in the past. It just seems more recently, you know, we've gotten to a point where it's like we need somebody to transcribe, and it's, you know, we need a stenographer to do meeting minutes, and that's not what's needed. That's you know, administratively restrictive. It doesn't make sense. The information is available, and that's why I make the motion that we follow the guidance, the general guidance of Robert's Rule, which clearly outlines what needs to be in the minutes, and the Sunshine Act. It's fairly clear.
So does an audio recording satisfy the state code to retain minutes? If we're going to ask a resident, and if they're curious about what happened, to listen to a 2 or 3 hour meeting to get facts.
I'm not sure. You kind of broke up, Diane. I'm not sure I answered your question, unless Joe, did you hear that?
I did hear the question. The only legal requirement that the Sunshine Act be followed. If the board wishes to incorporate, in addition to it, the Robert's Rules, as Commissioner
Somebody
Morgan's
has
motion,
to go on mute.
I can't.
the board to decide. But to answer your question directly, Diane, if there are minutes kept that are reflective of the requirements of the Sunshine Act, that is the only thing that is required. It is not necessary to have a record by way of a tape recording or a video recording or a verbatim transcript or exceedingly detailed minutes. The law doesn't call for that. It's really up to the board to decide how much information you want to be stored and how you're going to do that.
Thank you.
So Joe, having the audio and video available to the public goes above and beyond what is actually required of the law. Is that fair to say?
That's accurate. That's correct.
But again, we're asking our community if they're interested in the meeting details, that they're going to have to sit through several hours of meetings when they could just get a document and read it. I guess that's the difference between the two. To have an accurate representation of what was said at the meeting. So I'll ask the question again, who determines what is included in the minutes? Because I see that certain topics are quite verbatim and others are summarized with a sentence or two. So who makes that determination if it's not us as a board, as elected officials?
The meeting minutes are based on the topics that are in the agenda and the discussion at the meeting, and they are summarized. If the meeting minutes come to us for approval and there is significant content, not verbatim discussion, not quotes, not personal opinions included in them, certainly, Diane, there's an opportunity for us as a board to say, hey, wait a minute, there's some very important content that I believe might not have been included in these meeting minutes and should be. And then the meeting minutes can be adjusted. Or if there's an error, just like you saw in the July 1st meeting minutes, certainly that's the case. So, we've had meeting minutes done. I have never, in all the years I've been a commissioner, seen this much discussion and this much debate over meeting minutes. Probably in the entire Lehigh Valley, our meeting minutes are more thorough, even before all of this, than anybody's anywhere out there. I mean, they're incredibly thorough, and I have no doubt they'll continue to be thorough. What I believe is happening, though, is personal opinions, personal statements, verbatim quotes. We can't be on a mission to make sure that we make these meeting minutes someone's personal platform to put all of their information in, because that's not what they're meant for. So that's why I feel we need to put on record that our meeting minutes will follow the basic guidance of Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act, and that's how they will be presented and provided to the Board of Commissioners. If there's something we need to add because it was missed, we'll add it. But we are not going to go into adding personal information and personal quotes because we just want to see our personal information in there, because I think that that's wrong.
Okay, so I'll ask this question and I didn't get an answer. Who determines what is included in the minutes? I have seen certain individuals have lengthy paragraphs and others get a sentence or sometimes are left out. So as a township, who makes that determination?
Diane,
Meeting
Tracy,
minutes.
minute taker
Go ahead.
of the meeting minutes. And so Tracy drafts the meeting minutes and puts them onto the agenda based on the information she took from the meetings.
Okay. So the fact that I went back and listened to it and transcribed it for her and emailed it to her, so she didn't have to do any extra work.
It was your personal quote, though, Diane. How is that relative to the,
It wasn't a personal
the
quote.
overall decision? It was. It was. It was a personal opinion on the subject matter. And trust me, I have my own personal opinions on subject matters, but I can't write up a quote and then make sure that everything I say gets added into the meeting minutes. That's not my platform. That's not what the meeting minutes are for. Your information was provided in the meeting minutes, just not your page and a half quote. So that's what I'm getting at. That's what I think is going wrong with our meeting minutes.
Okay, well, I didn't put this out as a debate since that comment has been raised several times. I asked for my comments to be included in the minutes and I quoted a resident's concerns. And I feel that that's important to be reflected.
And I believe in the original minutes, your comment was reflected, but not your full statement. And correct me if I'm wrong, I could go back and look again, but the whole point is it's not a forum to put a full-length dissertation and quote on all our personal opinions on subject matters. That's not what the meeting minutes are meant for.
Okay, well, we'll disagree on that.
Commissioner Kelly, are you done?
Yes,
I say that based solely on Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act. I mean, I think that's the general guidance for meeting minutes that we should follow.
Well, we certainly don't have a written policy. Maybe that's something as a board we should look into.
I think Commissioner
Commissioner
Morgan
Walsh?
just said that she's made a motion to adopt rules as our guiding document for meeting minutes.
I have comments. I was waiting for Commissioner Kelly to be done. So may I proceed?
Go ahead, Commissioner Walsh. Please do.
Someone's got a microphone on. It's hard to hear.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can.
All right. Everything I've done in submitting my meeting minutes and everything I'm about to say is because I represent the people. That's the only reason I'm here. And what I'm about to say is what I believe is in the best interest of the people and the citizens of South Whitehall Township. My comments are 100% accurate. I took painstaking efforts to review the video, and I went word for word for word, so my comments are completely accurate. In the discussion and commentary about whether my comments were substance or opinion, my comments were substance, not just my opinion. And in the substance, I was representing the people of the township. Let's talk about Robert's Rules of Order. We did have a discussion about that. Solicitor Zader explained that Robert's Rules of Order only require the results of a vote and any action items taken. that would make our meeting minutes about a half page long. All right. And since the time that Solicitor Zader made that statement, our meeting minutes have been anything other than that. They have been very complete and comprehensive if Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Mobilio, and Commissioner Seton made the statement. However, Commissioner Kelly and I have to repeatedly point out the fact that our comments are not included. Why is that? Who is deciding what goes in the meeting minutes and who does not?
So
That's a rhetorical question. That's a rhetorical question. I'd like to continue.
Hey, Mike, it's the deep state.
What's that?
It's the deep state. That's who's making these decisions. I don't know who they are, but I know they exist.
May I speak? This is Tracy.
Please, Tracy.
I have to be honest here. Quite honestly, this irritates me. I try my very, very best to do a complete set of minutes. And quite honestly, the people who do have the most comments are Commissioners Walk and Commissioners Kelly. And I try my very best to get that in there. And I apologize if I miss something, but it's so much. So many comments are made, and even if I forget one thing, it's like I feel like I can't win here. It's just like, when is enough enough? I need to know, and I need to have clear guidance as to what you want in. I spend probably between 8 to 10 hours on a set of minutes. And quite honestly, that's a day on my weekend. So I would like a decision made on this. I try to do my very best, and it's very frustrating. And, you know, I don't know what else to say. I just need to have a decision made as to, you know, this is how you want it. If you want it a certain way, I have no problem. I'll do it that way. But please make a decision, and I'll be happy to accommodate you.
Yeah. So Tracy, thank you for your comments.
I think again, I think Commissioner Walk, I think again, Commissioner Morgan had put a motion out there, and I think that's what we're asking for, is if we're going to follow Robert's rules, the minutes will be shortened to follow Robert's rules and the decisional opportunities. But there's a video and an audio there that exist as the permanent record. So.
All right. May I continue with my comments?
Oh, fuck you, Walk.
Okay. All right. We need the comments to stop, and it's hard to, because I can't see who's making these comments. Please be respectful.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Okay, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Morgan.
Commissioner Walk, go ahead.
All right. Here's my take on this, since we've heard some others. For open government, the BOC meeting minutes must accurately include what commissioners said at the meeting, so the public has future access to the information. I'm dubious that these videos are going to be accessible and people are going to be willing to go through them in years to come. There's been many times I've looked back for meeting minutes, and I don't think the video is going to suffice. I'm going to bring up a completely different aspect of this, which I truly believe in. We live in the United States. We have a Constitution that has a First Amendment, which grants freedom of speech and freedom of the press. We have the right to have our comments included in the public record. Restricting commissioners' comments from the BOC meeting minutes violates our rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Any attempt to block our comments from the meeting minutes is censorship, pure and simple, which is unconstitutional. Any attempt to censor us demonstrates the lack of integrity, which fractures the trust with the citizens who we represent and who want complete transparency. Any attempt to block our comments does not just censor us as commissioners, but in effect, censors the people who we represent. And most importantly, your attempt to censorship erodes the transparency, trust, and integrity, which are the foundation of good, effective government. Let's take a look at what's possibly going on here. We have a lot of BOC votes that are 3-2, where Commissioner Kelly and I are in the minority. And now what we have is a motion to censor Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Wolf, myself.
Whoa. Commissioner Wolf, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you.
So that our
We are
minority
not
dissenting comments
censoring
are
anybody.
completely removed. Well, this is my perception of what's going on here. I believe
Preposterous.
you're censoring us.
And that's
Because
fine.
it's not
That's
good
your
enough to
perception, but
There is
it's
no
not a
censoring
censor.
anyone. Nobody's
You
censoring
have to.
anyone.
Okay.
All
well,
we are
that's what it
asking
sounds
from
like
you
you're
is to
doing.
be,
Just because someone doesn't want to take down everything you say word for word is not censorship. They're videoing it, they're recording it audibly. All the information. Just because you want to make it.
Go back and look at the June 3 minutes on a certain subject. Everything Commissioner Morgan said is in the minutes. Everything Commissioner Mobilio said is in the minutes. Nothing that Commissioner Kelly or Commissioner Wolf said is in the minutes. I think that's a little out of balance. And I call that
I don't agree with that statement. I don't agree with that statement. But Commissioner Walk, I will say this. In no way, shape, or form is my motion meant to censor anybody by any means, shape, or form. My motion was meant to create structure in the meeting minutes, to avoid having personal platforms to disseminate information. It is not to censor anybody. Hey, listen, right now, everybody can say whatever they want to say as long as it is within reason and within the subject matter at hand. There's no censorship. There's nothing. This will be on record. It will be on video. It will be on audio. That doesn't go away. What I'm saying for the meeting minutes, which is that document, it is not a, we don't have to have things in there verbatim, word by word by word. It's not required. It's not necessary. We're not trying to be transparent. Transparency isn't going to go away, but there's no reason, and there's no, for us to be taking whatever Tracy said, 10 hours to do meeting minutes, to go back and forth. I don't like it here. I don't like it there. I want it changed again. I want my name in here. I want my name in there. It's silly. We're losing sight of what the meeting minutes are for. We're not in any way, shape, or form trying to take away somebody's right of speech. And I resent the fact that you say that, because in no way, shape, or form would we try and censor anybody, nor have we done that. So again, I believe it's important for this board to move forward with following the guidance of Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act. And there's nothing more transparent than the Sunshine Act in developing meeting minutes. The guidance is clear. The video, the audio, that will all still be there. In addition, we couldn't be more transparent. We're not trying to push anything behind closed doors. There's nothing that we're not trying to share. What we are trying to do is create a process that is efficient and clear. And that's why I made my motion.
Okay, I have one last comment. I believe in censorship. And I think it's deplorable that you would censor Diane Kelly and myself.
No one is censoring anybody. Nobody is censoring.
You're saying that we are trying to create a personal platform. I think others are trying to control the narrative for their own advantage. And every time we have an opposite opinion,
I did not mention you or Diane as a personal platform. I said the minutes cannot be used as a personal platform. So I did not say it was you or Diane. I did not say that. So Mike, again, the meeting minutes, without a doubt, Tracy does a phenomenal job and has always done a phenomenal job on meeting minutes. For prior boards, even before any new members came on. And for some reason, all of a sudden, all these meeting minutes have gotten totally out of control. Nobody's ever happy with them. They've gone from, 3-4 pages to 23 pages. We might as well get a stenographer or court stenographer in to do our meeting minutes, and that's ridiculous. That's not what they're meant for. They're a brief of the subject matters. They're not a verbatim. That's not what they're meant for. That's what the audio and video do. There's no censorship here. That is not the intent. So please stop saying that. That is not the intent.
I don't have any more comments.
Are there any other
President
questions?
Morgan, I agree with you. President Morgan, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We are not censoring anybody. The minutes are taking a long time. They shouldn't be the way they are. And I also agree with Commissioner Mobilio on his statements.
I will say this too, because I think this is important, and I want to mention this. Whoever is logged on as Jeff Morgan, which I'm assuming you think you are my husband, I would appreciate if you get off, because nobody in my family is on as Jeff Morgan, if that's the case, unless there's another Jeff Morgan. There might be. So I see the comments coming through on that one, and I don't appreciate it. So anyway, thank you, Commissioners Walk, Kelly, Mobilio, Seton. Are there any other questions or comments on that particular subject matter? Are there any questions from the public? I've seen some questions come in from the chat. I believe we answered the questions on transparency and information. Was there anything specific?
Corey, I think Lee Salt has a question.
Sure, Lee.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. I just had a question and made clarification, Commissioner Morgan. On notification, in the minutes, in the agenda, it says the meeting is electronically recorded, but then unless the meeting is after the meeting improvements, after the meeting minutes are approved, the electronic copy is destroyed. So I'm a little confused. Is the electronic copy held forever, or is it destroyed after meetings approved?
Lee, this is Renee. I can answer that. That was old language. That was old language. It was in the template of the agenda. So we will work to move that. That is not the case. The decision was made to maintain. That is an incorrect statement. That would be removed.
Okay, I just wanted, I was, I heard two different things. That's why I wanted to make sure that was correct, what I was hearing.
No, that is the case. They have all been posted to board docs.
Okay, I agree. I just didn't want to make sure they weren't deleted.
Yeah, they're not any longer now.
Lee, just to be clear, to address the question kind of tangentially, but also to address the issue that was raised before about, well, no one's going to want to go through 3 hours of meetings to listen for portions that they might be interested in. When the new website's up and running, the video, audio on the website will allow users to jump directly to specific agenda items and discussions without having to watch the whole thing to determine what might be of interest to them. So this idea that, well, if we don't do thorough meeting minutes, no one's going to know what's happening, besides the fact that everything's recorded, video and audibly, people are going to have the opportunity to literally jump right to a specific point in time on a video without having to watch the whole thing to see exactly what was discussed about that particular agenda item.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Commissioner Mobilio. I appreciate that.
That is correct. And I just wanted to let you know that that portion of the project will be up and running prior to the new website. So we're actively working on that now. And once that portion is up and running, we undergo training in August. So once that portion is up and running, that will be up and running prior to the new website. And that will allow you to click on the actual motion in the agenda, and it will take you to that portion like Commissioner Mobilia discussed on the video.
And one other thing to save Tracy some time, there is dictation software out there that takes an audio recording and does convert it to text. So if it takes, I don't know if Tracy's doing it on her own time or township time, but it might be worth investing in that to translate the audio text to text to save time and money.
Lee, thank you for that suggestion. And partially the video streaming of our, Tracy just has to do something in the video stream of our new software, and it will capture that. So that is part of the project kind of as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Lee.
you.
Rob Hodges has a question.
Hi, this is Rob Hodges, 1707 Penn's Crossing. I guess this issue pertains to all meetings, but it seems like the June 3rd meeting is the one in particular that's being discussed right now. Is that the meeting where Commissioner Mobilio's statements were discussed?
Commissioner Mobilio, his comments were about specific to the June 3rd. My suggestion and my motion are relative to a variety of meetings that we've gone round and round on meeting minutes. It's not specific to June 3rd. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I just want to make sure I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I was addressing the correct meeting. Have the minutes for that meeting, the June 3rd meeting, been prepared yet?
Yes.
Mr. Hodges, the answer to your first question is yes. The meeting minutes were prepared. The meeting minutes were tabled 4 weeks ago because Commissioner Kelly and I said we had comments to submit. We submitted those comments, and they are okay. Attached to the June 3rd meeting minutes, awaiting our vote of whether we approve them or not.
Okay, so again, I just want to make sure I was asking the appropriate question for the appropriate minutes. At that meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, Commissioner Mobilio made a statement of his own. Was that included in those meetings minutes?
I can answer that. Yes, it was nearly.
Hold on.
Commissioner Morgan on page 2 is where it's listed.
Yeah, I found it. Yep. And I mean, I can't say that looks like it was his full statement. I mean, Matt, you're the only one who could attest to that. But again, with Robert's rule, with Robert's rule and the way that minutes should be, it should be a brief summary, not a verbatim statement, not a quote. And that's important. You know, I'm not saying this. I didn't say this was specific to Commissioner Walker Kelly. I said this in general. This is, our minutes are getting out of hand. And that's, you know, it wasn't specific to any one commissioner. It was in general. So that's why I believe we really need some structure and control on how our meeting minutes are being conducted.
Well, that's fine, Commissioner Morgan, but I think it makes the point that Commissioner Mobilio's statement, which was a personal statement, was included, whereas other statements by other commissioners were not. Thank you very much.
Thus, I think it's important that we get ourselves to a point where meeting minutes, we aren't going round and round about personal statements, personal quotes, those types of things. They can certainly be referenced, and they'll be available in the audio and in the video, but not something that needs to be in every single set of minutes verbatim for any commissioner.
I also want to
Okay.
comment on that, Tori. It's Tracy. I think part of the reason was the additions were 4 complete pages, whereas Matt's was a paragraph. I mean, 4 pages, 4 extra pages is a lot. And, you know, that I don't know what else to add. I certainly could, if you want me to put some kind of condensed version of what they had said, fine. That, I mean, just give me guidance as to what you want in this set of minutes on that topic. You know, it was, he had 1 paragraph, they had 4 pages.
I didn't send in 4 pages. Did I,
Okay.
Tracy?
There's 4 attachments, Diane. Between you and Mike, there's 4 pages.
I don't know what Mike sent, but I didn't think that that was mine.
Right. I'm just saying a total of pages from the 2 of you. It was 4 additional pages. And
Tracy,
again,
did
Diane,
you-
I have no problem.
I don't,
I just need some guidance from the board.
Tracy, did you-
I
my thought
understand.
around,
Yeah, you do, and that's why I
Okay.
transcribed them myself to you, because I realized that you do an awful lot of work to pull this together.
And I appreciated that, Diane. And that's why I added it as an attachment.
Well, thank you for doing
All
that,
right.
Tracy.
So,
I
all right.
don't know
so,
what,
looks
just a quick comment. So I don't know what everyone thinks at this point in time. So Tracy gave her opinion and made a suggestion. Actually, originally, I was going to submit a shorter version of both topics. So I don't know if you want to dispense with this tonight and have a vote, or whether you want to entertain Tracy's suggestion, which I'm more than willing to accommodate by writing like a short paragraph on each subject, just for your consideration.
we have a motion on the floor and a second as far as the basic structure and guidance for meeting minutes, which quite honestly in the past is the same structure and guidance that Tracy was using. It was only since recently that, you know, with the request of putting everything in there verbatim, have things gotten out of control. So, you know, I still stand behind my motion that I think we need some structure and guidance, and that structure and guidance, which is utilized across the valley by other municipalities and townships, is the Roberts Rule and the Sunshine Act. And my suggestion and my motion is that is the guidance we follow as it relates to developing meeting minutes.
And Tori, just to be clear, because just so there's no argument that things were not done procedurally correct, I think that we should vote on the adoption of the minutes first, because that motion was first on the floor before we would vote on your motion. Is that accurate? I'm just to be clear.
Actually, I don't know if we made I don't know. You made a comment. I made a comment after we went through the meeting minutes, and then you made a comment, and then I made a motion. So
You're right. The motion to approve the meetings was not on the floor. I apologize. You're correct.
that's correct. The motion right now on the floor is to follow the general guidance of the Roberts Rule and the Sunshine Act for development of the meeting minutes. This will validate the structure and efficiency of our meeting minutes. It does not take away from the transparency. It does not censor anybody from what they have to say or where it will be documented. It just puts a process and a structure to meeting minutes. That is what it's meant to do. That is the motion on the floor, and we do have a second from Commissioner Sutton. So I would say at this point, we would need a roll call vote, Renee.
Commissioner Walk.
With the qualification that this will apply to everyone equally, I vote yes.
Commissioner Mobilio.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly.
I would like to comment that I believe it would be important for us as a board to come up with a policy for minutes that's clear for all of the members. So I'm going to vote no, since we don't have any details of what that's going to entail. It leaves an awful lot open-ended.
Commissioner Seton.
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan.
Yes, motion carries. Certainly moving forward, if there's discussion and maybe a more formal action that we need to work on moving forward, as far as overall guidance, we can work on that. But as general guidance, we now, it's clear the basic functionality and the basic structure of our meeting minutes will follow the Roberts Rule and the Sunshine Act, which is very clearly outlines transparency, which I see in some of the comments. That's everybody's concerns, which shouldn't be a concern because it's not going to take away from that. And we will continue to have the video and audio available at any time at the added, with the added option to be able to gather information from audio and video with our new software package much more easily. So that being said, I still see that we're still getting comments coming in here. I believe David Burke pulled one in after the fact. David, I'm not sure if we answered your questions or not.
Yeah, David Burke, Buck Trail Road. Yeah, my question is, you're making the June 3rd, you're making this retroactive to the June 3rd, this Robert Rules adoption, is that correct?
No, we haven't even voted on the June 3rd meeting minutes yet.
Yeah.
No, but by your motion and your vote, you're saying you're adopting the Robert's Rules of Order, okay? And I'm asking, is that retroactive to the June 3rd meeting minutes?
What's her name? Tracy.
It's not necessary. Not.
Hour.
Go ahead.
On our own time, figuring out.
We got. Hold on. We got somebody on. We got somebody talking on. Who's not on mute. So, make sure you're on mute if you're not speaking. One of the commissioners was going to say something. Was that you, Commissioner Mobilio?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that we've already approved the July 1st minutes, so there's no retroactivity to this Robert Rule.
Right, but my statement is that prior to this evening in your Robert's Rules vote and adoption, there was no such thing, okay? And you're now saying on June 3rd, this issue is closed because, you know, you should be using the Robert. I guess my point is that I don't know what's in the written minutes, okay? I attended the meeting. There was a lot of input from the public. There were statements made by Commissioners Kelly and Wolk reflecting comments they got from the public. If those comments were not included in any sort of detail, but yet Mr. Mobilio's comments were included with much detail, do Commissioners Wolk and Kelly have a valid point that they're trying to make?
Dave, we've already agreed that
censorship of what they were saying. Excuse me, Commissioner Mobilio, now you can talk.
Your question's already been answered, but you're just soapboxing here. I mean, the point is that their statements are being included. There is no retroactivity. They're full-length statements. They're 2-page long. Each statements are being included, assuming that the vote passes to approve the minutes. So that will answer your question.
Oh, okay. I heard resistance to that. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Again, let me just clarify again, Mr. Burke. My suggestion to move to Robert's Rule and make it clear that that's the general guidance along with the Sunshine Act that we're going to follow to conduct meeting
Yep.
minutes was not because of the June 3rd meeting minutes. It was because of a variety of meeting minutes. This is not the first time we've gone round and round and round over meeting minutes. It's not specific to June 3rd. So to answer your question, it is not specific to June 3rd. It is not retroactive to June 3rd. We haven't voted on the June 3rd meeting minutes at this point. So, you know,
Okay.
my motion is moving forward, you know, we need to have a basic structure on how meeting minutes are conducted. And quite honestly,
Right.
historically, that is exactly how we used to do them historically. We unofficially followed Robert's rule. And of course, we're by law bound to the Sunshine Act. That doesn't change. So my motion is to make it official. I mean, that's what we need to do. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and I just heard Mr. Mobilio say that there are 2 pages of comments are included in the minutes.
June 3rd minutes, yes.
The June 3rd minutes
Yeah.
had, they had an addendum to them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry
You
for the
got it.
confusion.
You got it. No confusion, no problem. Okay, so that being said, we do have for consideration this evening, and I will say again, you know, this is, you know, we've gone round and round about meeting minutes. This is not specific to June 3rd meeting minutes. There's a lot of information in the June 3rd meeting minutes. So the action we made tonight is not necessarily retroactive. So we do have the June 3rd meeting minutes to be considered for possible approval. So do I hear a motion to approve, or are there any questions or comments on the addendum? I know we had a comment from Commissioner Mobilio. He made his comment. Were there any other questions or comments on the June 3rd minutes?
Yes, Commissioner Morgan, I'd like to just make a statement if I could regarding the June
Of course.
3rd meeting. And thank you, Commissioner Mobilio. You used some very strong words that my statement premeditated and malicious. I just want to review for the full board. I know you're aware. I sent an email to Tracy with my corrections that I had transcribed for her. I received a very gracious reply from her. A couple of days later, Commissioner Wolk sent in something as well. And then I received an email response from Commissioner Mobilio that was copied to all commissioners, also our township manager and our township executive assistant, who is Tracy. And he made a statement in this email that he didn't believe the minutes would be accurate. And I quote, during at least one point of Diane's soapbox monologue, she began to cry for some reason. I believe the minutes should reference the number of tears that were shed to be truly accurate. As an elected official, as a commissioner, as vice president of this board, I find the language in that email to be demeaning and a belittlement of the process of ensuring accurate meeting minutes. As a governing body of this township, we may disagree on matters that come before us, but we must not default to demeaning language or personal attacks. We've been elected to serve this community, and we need to work together respectfully for the good of South Whitehall. My asking for my comments to be included, you know, I'm sorry, Matt, to demean them and call it a soapbox monologue is just uncalled for. And I just would like the record to reflect that.
Well, and my response to that is when my comments were made public, we had a meeting, I think it was within 36 or 48 hours of my comments. Neither Commissioners Walk nor Kelly reached out to me. They didn't say anything to me. There was no communications with them until we all met, at which point, by the time we met at our June 3rd meeting, someone had threatened to kill my 3 children. Someone had threatened to kill me. I received numerous threats at my work, to my employees, to friends that I had, that I have. There was no limit to the amount of horrible things that people said about me online, over the phone, via email, you name it. And the first opportunity that I had to speak with Commissioners Kelly and Walk was about the incident, was the night of our June 3rd meeting, when the 2 of them decided to read their statements, call for my resignation, call for a vote of no confidence. So when I am faced with threats to my family, threats to my business, threats to myself, and my fellow commissioners with whom I campaigned, with whom I debated, with whom I've been had the pleasure of serving with for the last 6 or 7 months on this board, don't reach out with concern or questions. Rather, they use the opportunity, the first opportunity they see me, after I've just had a conversation with a detective from South Whitehall about threats against my family, and having to ask my family to leave the home and leave the neighborhood because of my fear that they may be murdered by one of the people who contacted the township. When my first contact with Commissioners Kelly and Walk was for them to request my resignation and to read statements into the public record that only inflamed those people who had threatened my life, then yes, there is going to be some level of agitation and upsetness when, in those following weeks, when the threats continued, and there were continued death threats, when Commissioners Walk and Kelly, their only concern, again, never reached out to me, never asked if I was okay, never said, you know, it was a terrible thing you said, but, you know, we're here for you. When their only concern was about getting their fully transcribed statements into the minutes, yes, I was mad, and I said what I said, and I stand by what I said to Commissioner Kelly, because as I sit here today, I believe that their statements were nothing but self-aggrandizement and for political gain. So I'm not going to apologize for being angry with Commissioners Kelly and Walk when their only concern was about their statements being fully transcribed and not about my health or welfare, or my family's health or welfare, when I was facing literal death threats. So I appreciate Commissioner Kelly bringing this up as an opportunity to, you know, trash me on the public record in defense of her own motives. But I would never apologize for being upset that that she was stoking the flames of hatred against us for the same people that were threatening my family.
So, thank you, both of you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Morgan, I would like to just make one response. I was unaware of threats to your family, Commissioner Mobilio. I'm not responsible for people in the community that might have reached out to you, and for you to imply somehow that I had a way to stop that, or I'm fanning any flames. I only responded in that meeting to very respectful comments that I received from residents via email, phone call, and Facebook, who were feeling very concerned and afraid with the comments that they saw, and I was reflecting that in my comments. So for you to somehow ask that I was fanning flames, I think is just untrue.
All right. I think we're done with this part of the discussion, because I think if there's discussion to be had at this point on that particular subject matter, my suggestion is that discussion happens between Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Mobilio. And communication is key. And without a doubt, we do truly need to work as a team. So there's a lot to be said about that. I agree. But this is not the time nor the place to go back and forth on that particular discussion. So that being said, I think it's important we move on. And do I hear a motion to move forward with the June 3rd, 2020 Board of Commissioner meeting minutes with the amendments and attachments?
So moved.
We do have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
I second.
We have a second from Commissioner Walk. Can I have a roll call vote first? Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio,
No.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton, is Joe on?
You might have an
I
audio
don't see it.
problem. We can go out of order if you have to, Renee.
Okay, now Commissioner Morgan, I think.
We have background. I'm gonna vote yes on this one with the just the statement that, you know, I believe that the meeting minutes, what I said is true. However, in light of the fact that I certainly don't want to see Tracy to have to go back and redo these minutes again, although I don't, you know, I just don't want to see her have to do them again. Everybody's personal statements, I believe, have been included in this. Moving forward with Robert's Rule and the Sunshine Act, this is not how we're going to be doing things. But at this point, to get this moving and to get these minutes completed and move forward, I will vote yes.
Commissioner Seton, I think, is trying to cast his vote.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'll vote no.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, motion carries, minutes pass. Next, this evening, we have a presentation. It is the Regional Interim Act 537 plan from Mike Schuber from Arrow Consulting. I will let Randy introduce this particular topic first, and we will go from there. Randy.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. Real quick, just a couple brief introductions so everybody understands who's on the call tonight. You have myself, Mike Elias, and Herb Bender from the Public Works Department. We also have Daryl Jenkins here with us from Spot Stevens and McCoy, who is our utility engineer. And the person giving the presentation tonight is Mike Schober from Arrow Consulting, who is doing the plan on behalf of the region. That is being required by DEP. So DEP is requiring this regional interim 537 plan. And the reason they are requiring this is because of the capacity concerns at the Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant, specifically triggered by heavy rainfalls from August of 2018 into July of 2019, which happened to be the wettest 12-month period we've had in over 100 years. Currently, the plant is permitted for 40 million gallons per day. During those heavy rainfall months from 18 through 19, that 40 million gallons per day was exceeded by 3 consecutive months, which triggered a Chapter 94 permit violation for the region. So DEP has now been working with LCA, the City of Allentown, and the signatories who discharge their sewage to Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant to come up with a regional approach, looking at development throughout the region, the infrastructure that's currently in place, and determining whether the infrastructure in place will be sufficient enough to support future growth through the region. So I hope I gave an okay synopsis of that, Mike. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mike, and he'll give a brief overview of the 537 plan. Again, we're all here to answer any questions you may have. There's no formal action needed tonight, but there will be a resolution on the Board of Commissioners agenda for August 5th, which other signatories are also adopting during that same time. So we're here to answer questions you may have.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, Commissioners. I hope you can hear me.
We sure can. Welcome.
All right, awesome. So Randy did a great job on the introduction there on the background of why we are here. I think it's important to note that although the Kleins Island treatment plant was technically overloaded hydraulically, it continued to, it always met all of its effluent limits throughout all the rainy months, rainy events. So, which is good because the plant can handle more flow than is actually permitted for, which is going to be one of our strategies, as you'll see. So DEP is requiring us to do this. This is like a corrective action plan that's going to get us through the next 5 years. It's called an interim plan because it is just for the next 5 years. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to get a plan together for a much longer planning horizons, 30 years, for instance. So this interim plan is, there are several things that are going to have to be done in the next 5 years. And this is basically what all of the KISS signatories are agreeing to do. So number one is going to be re-rating the Kleins Island treatment plant. This is going to be a paper re-rate. It's already been shown that the plant can handle a lot more flow than it already does. So by doing that, that'll help eliminate these future problems. If we do get another 100-year rain event, the Kleins Island plant will be able to handle it. Secondly, one of the things that was identified during those rain events were some restrictions in the Trexlertown interceptor, which may or may not impact your township, but there are some pipelines in that area that are undersized that are going to have to be addressed. The other thing all the municipalities are agreeing to do is to continue implementing their respective inflow and infiltration source reduction programs. That's the extraneous rainfall that gets into the sewer lines, either through the ground or directly through downspouts. Everybody in the region is working to reduce that so that the systems are not overloaded. Over the next 5 years, then, LCA is going to be developing the long-term plan, basically. That's part of this short interim plan, is to develop the long-term plan. So there are going to be studies done of the treatment plant to get it re-rated. There will be hydraulic studies done of the entire system. There will be planning done for flow projections from each of the signatories for the next 30 years. That will also be done. All that information will be melded down into a long-term 537 plan. So in 2025, we'll be back here having you review another long-term plan and adopting it. So from a schedule perspective, what DEP requires is, first, the plan must be reviewed by all the municipal and county planning agencies. That has been done. And once all those planning agencies have reviewed it, we incorporate and address their comments. And then the plan is advertised for 30 days for public comment. That also has been done. The public comment period ended July 10th. After the public comment period is done, then the various municipalities can consider the plan for adoption. So that is where we are at in the planning phase. We are hoping to get through all of the municipal planning or all the municipal adoptions by mid-September, and then submit this to DEP for their review and approval. That's it in a nutshell. I've had a chance to look at it. We have, I mentioned that we did receive comments from during the planning period. Those almost exclusively were related to signatories wanting to modify their flow projections for the next 5 years, including South Whitehall Township. So that was the bulk of most of the comments that we got, and those have been addressed and will be incorporated into the plan that you will be asked to adopt. So that's all I have, Commissioner Morgan. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you, Mike. So as far as the signatories, so all the signatories are conducting the interim Act 537 plan?
That's correct.
Did you say that? Yes.
Basically, okay. The Lehigh County Authority is doing it with everybody, but they're taking the lead and putting it together. But all the signatories have been meeting for the past year almost to review this and go over it.
Okay. But the responsibilities and any deliverables could vary amongst the member municipalities based on the amount of work that's been completed.
Correct. There are some things that will be specific to your municipality, mainly your inflow and infiltration reduction. And then there are some things that are common to everybody, like the plant re-rate at Klein's Island.
Right, right. So I'll open it up to questions from the board. I do see we have some questions from Manley on this. So if there's no questions from the board, I'll go right to the public questions. Was there anything else, Randy, that you wanted to add prior to going to the questions?
No, nothing further to add, Commissioner Morgan.
Okay. All right. Did the board have any questions or comments for Mike on his presentation?
I just had one question, please. When the different municipalities are submitting the developments that are going to affect this plan, I noticed from the different ones that were included in our packet, some of them are very comprehensive with, going into future years and others not. What is the structure or the framework for what is required from us as a township? What sort of developments must be required? Is there some sort of a template for that? What does need to be, does it need to be in preliminary review already if it's a new plan, or how does that work?
It can really be in any phase. It will include projects that have already been approved, projects that are in planning, projects that you may feel are coming down the line. Your township staff, who knows the township and the parcels in it, vacant or otherwise, have to do some educated guessing, so to speak. It's a projection on your flows and a projection on what kind of development you're going to get. So they take that, they look at that and make an educated estimate on what they believe will be developed over the next 5 years. And as you may recall, this is a 5-year flow projection. It only has to get us through the end of 2025, and then we'll be submitting the long-term Act 537 plan.
I think that leads into, Mike, the question from Manley. Diane's question leads right into the question from Manley Offit. Ridge Farm, which obviously is a very large development that the township is in the process of working with, was that included in this interim Act 537 plan?
Randy, you could probably verify that, but I believe that was part of the reason why you guys modified your flow projection. So the answer would be yes.
Yeah.
It was included.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And just as a
Diane.
Randy, I guess that you would be the one to answer this question, because I noticed that, for example, Hotel Hamilton, I didn't see that on there, or the Crockers Port DC warehouses, or Parkland Manor Phase 4. I mean, there's some things that are currently in the works, as well as the Parkview Inn development. So what did we use as a township to base our findings to submit the developments that we did?
Are you saying they were not included on the flow projection table, or they are?
I did not see them, so I certainly missed them.
This is George. This is George. They were all included.
They should be on there, yes. And
yeah.
We try to clear our work here done up all over the bar, and that's basically, what we began for when we try to clear here in the state began reopening which
Renee, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Bill Erdman,
is that Bill?
Yes.
If
the commissioners wouldn't mind, I wanted to respond specifically to Commissioner Kelly's question, because I'm familiar with Parkland Manor. The position on Parkland Manor Phase 4 because the total sewage flow from the entire site, including that more recent project, is less than the original flow. It does not require a planning module. Consequently, it doesn't quote unquote appear on the radar screen for purposes of this process, because this process is set up so that when planning modules are approved, they're approved under these limitations that have been put in place for the various municipalities. Parkland Manor is not even in there for that reason.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. You said because the flow is less than.
Yes. So just for round numbers, let's say that the previous West End Racket Club was flowing 10,000 gallons a day, and Parkland Manor is going to flow 9,000 total with everything on the site. That's less than the original. It does not require a planning module, and that's being currently run through DEP at this point. But that's the position of the developer in our office.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Basically, Diane, the capacity's already been accounted for with the previous tenant, and the new tenant is less than that capacity, so there's no reason to account for it.
Right.
That makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Were there any other questions or comments?
I do, President Morgan. Michael, with the re-rating of the Kleins Island plant, is there going to be a reallocation of capacity to the various municipalities, increasing it from what it is today?
That is a very good question, and I don't think that's been resolved yet. I believe LCA is looking at the agreements as they stand right now to see, specifically how that would have to be dealt with. But traditionally, that's how it's dealt with. If there's a re-rate, the flows generally get allocated based on current allocations, but that has not been determined yet.
Is that something that will be discussed and ultimately agreed to among the municipalities, or is it imposed by DEP? Does LCA have some kind of leg up in making that determination? How does that occur?
That will be determined by the municipalities and their intermunicipal agreements that are in place that kind of dictates who gets what, who has what capacity where, in the various either pump stations or sewage treatment plant.
And again, if I is in the works but not completed, and even when completed, it's an interim plan until 2025. Is it anticipated that there's going to be any moratorium in any community?
No, it is not.
Thank you.
Joe, if I can apologize for jumping in again, but I've lived this for quite a few years. I think it's safe to say that there will not be any a reallocation or additional allocation as a result of this process, because the re-rate is only for hydraulic capacity. There are still limits on the loading on the plant, so it's a partial re-rate to allow peak flows to go through the plant for a period of 3 months, which is where the violation occurred. So my understanding, I'm sorry. My understanding is we would not be addressing that at this point. We would probably be addressing that in conjunction with the long-term plan, at which point municipalities will be requesting additional capacity. And then we're going to have to dig into the very arduous process of working through these numerous agreements that have been around probably since the 60s. So I think the answer to your question is no, there will not be a change of allocation for each municipality as a result of this.
Thank you, Bill.
I hope that helps.
Understood.
Right, and I think to expand on what Bill said, in the long-term plan, when you're doing everybody does their 30-year projections, it's anticipated that a major project will have to take place at the Kleins Island plant, as well as maybe some of the conveyance systems. So the agreements, again, will be looked at, allocations will be made, and obviously your costs, your cost share for that will be based on those allocations.
Thank you, Mike. Were there any other questions or comments regarding the interim Act 537 plan? More to come on that one for sure. Howard Kutzler has a question. Howard.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan, and thank you to the board for allowing me to speak real quick. Just looking at the sewage flow future table, just a couple questions. The commercial tract at SR 309 and Chapman Road, which property does that refer to?
What page are you on, Howard?
Howard, I believe that refers to the corner property right there.
So that would be the northwest corner?
Correct.
Okay, and yeah, that's currently that is a Jandal property, and I do note that you have 7 EDUs proposed for that site. And how much? And if someone could answer, what is an EDU? What's the flow of an EDU? Is it 250 gallons per day or 300, 400?
Darrell, can you jump in on that?
Sure. Howard, all of the signatories have agreed to utilize a consistent number for planning. Mike, please correct me. I believe that's 230 gallons per day. I might be off by a few.
That's correct.
Okay. So yeah, we're going to be using 230 gallons per day for all future planning numbers.
Okay, Darrell, should we submit a plan to redevelop that site? Would 7 EDUs be the maximum we would be permitted, or is this just a placeholder?
It's just a placeholder. It's our best engineering estimates at this time of what various properties, how they would develop, but certainly whenever a project would actually be placed in front of the township, you would be able to define exactly what capacity you would need. So you're not tied to the exact numbers that appear in the plan.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
I also see there's a comment in the chat function, Commissioner Morgan, I'd like to address, and maybe Mike Shover can help me with this too, but I do believe this plan was publicly advertised.
Yes, it was. On June 10th, it was advertised in the the record, and it was for 30 days. We accepted comments.
So that question from Mr. Morgan, could we have your address, please? For the record, any questions? We'd like to have your address.
Is there a way for the comments to be turned off? Because realistically,
no, we already talked about that. We can't turn them off. I wish we could at points, because what concerns me is people are making comment but don't want to put their real name in and use other people's names, which is definitely inappropriate. So all I ask is if Mr. Morgan, whoever made the question or comment, or could give their address for the record, but apparently that's not going to happen. But thank you, Randy, for addressing that comment.
And I'd like to add that this document was available to the public on our website. When you clicked on the agenda, you could actually see this. So it's a public document.
That's correct, Commissioner Kelly. Thank you. And I know it was also publicly advertised on the Planning Commission agenda when it was presented at that time as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? I'm sure more to come. Mike, we haven't seen the last of all of this. Lots more to come. We appreciate your presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening, all.
You too. Nice to see you too, Darrell. Have a good evening. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, next this evening, under resolutions, under ordinances for consideration, we have a request to advertise. It's in an ordinance amending South Whitehall Township zoning ordinance by amending section 350-24C7 R5 medium density residential zoning district schedule and section 350-24C8 R10 high density residential zoning district schedule to allow for a maximum height of 40 feet for the residential buildings and providing for the severability clause, retention of rights to enforce clause, a repealer clause, and an effective date. So, George, would you like to brief the board? I know this is a topic that is coming back to us that was requested to be modified.
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. So yeah, I won't go into a lot of detail on this one. You last saw it in early June, where it included a couple more zoning categories than the applicant had originally requested. So this is tailored back to just include specifically the R5 and R10 zoning categories. And that is, as you mentioned, a request to go from 35 feet to 40 feet. We did send this back to the Planning Commission in the middle of June. The Planning Commission did formally consider the matter there and unanimously recommended that the Board of Commissioners approve the amendment as modified. Again, that just includes the R5 and R10 zoning categories. And it has already been transmitted to the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and that was done on June 22. So unless you have any questions, I won't get into a lot of detail, and I think you pretty much know the history, but it's back to you really just for a motion to advertise at this point.
All right, thank you, George. Were there any questions or comments from the board? We went into a lot of detail on this. This was streamlined down to take out some of the other zoning districts that George had mentioned. Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Seton.
I just had a comment that, that although the motion is to advertise at this point, I think that we as the board should, when we vote for advertise, have in mind that the approval comes thereafter, and so that we don't advertise for no reason.
Point well taken, Commissioner Seton, absolutely. Were there any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? All right, that being said, do I hear a motion to advertise the ordinance as read?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Seton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Kelly. Could I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk. Commissioner Walk.
Mike, are you with us?
Okay. Thumbs up.
Just keep going, Renee.
Commissioner
Thumbs
Mobilio.
up? Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Mobilio.
I, but just with a quick caveat, appreciate the patience of the petitioner, the requester, through all this process. This, as it stands, satisfies the concerns that I've raised previously. Obviously, I can't say whether how I would vote when it comes back before us, but as it stands today, it addresses the concerns that I've had. So I less than advertising.
Commissioner Kelly.
Aye.
Commissioner Seton.
Aye.
And Commissioner Morgan.
Aye. Motion carries to advertise. Thank you, George. All
My
right.
pleasure as always.
Next for consideration and possible action, we have a resolution extending the conditional approval granted to a waiver of a subdivision and land development review and approval requirements of the South Whitehall Township Saldo for a plan entitled Dorney Park Project 2020 relating to properties located at 3830 Dorney Park Road. George, I'll hand this one over to you.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. I think the applicant may be present as well and may want to speak, but if you'll recall, some of the commissioners might not, because I think this was about a year ago that the original land development waiver was granted. That was back in July of 2019. And if you recall, it was a small water park feature. It was a water park feature to replace another water park feature. That land development waiver was subject to 9 conditions. Approval resolution condition number 9 permitted 12 months to satisfy those conditions. That would be July 17th, so in 2 days. The applicant I know is really close at this point. In fact, I think without kind of speaking for Tony a little bit, I think they've actually already signed off on the plans today. And
That's correct.
And the applicant has sent in the conditions for the resolution grant. They're asking for a 60-day 60-day extension to complete the project. I think that's easily doable, and that's where it stands at this point. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe if the applicant's present, they can make a statement if they like.
Thank you. This is Adam Smith from Mary Eisen Associates. I am the engineer for the project. The only outstanding condition was just that we didn't get the plans recorded. Things kind of went on pause for a little bit due to COVID, but we did get the plans printed and signed by the park, and the township engineer has signed them, so we anticipate getting them recorded within the next few days.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board in regards to this resolution request? Any from the public? All right, that being said, do I hear a motion to move forward with the resolution extending the conditional approval to Dorney Park?
So moved.
Make a motion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second from Commissioner Walk. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye. Did you not hear me?
Thank you.
oh, now we do.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sutton,
He's muted.
do we see him? You giving it?
Thumbs up.
Okay. And Commissioner Morgan,
Aye. Motion carries. Extension granted. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have no motions for consideration this evening. However, we do have a few items under correspondence and information items. The first, I'll hand things over to Chief Dorney for a statistics report. Chief Dorney?
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. To go over the statistics for the month of June, we handled 914 calls for service. 118 of those were self-initiated by the officers. That is a decrease in overall reports from the same time last year by 260. Last year we handled 1,174 calls during the month of June. The largest category would be EMS calls with 222 of those. Our UCRs, which is the crime report, we had 69 crimes reported, which was a decrease of 58 compared to last year's 127. The arrests for the month were 28. 7 of those were self-initiated by the officer, and that is a decrease of 34 arrests compared to last year with 72. So due to obviously the COVID pandemic, the stats are down slightly, but they are picking up a little bit. There is more activity going on, and the men and women of the police department are doing a fantastic job during these critical times that we're facing across the nation.
Very good. Thank you, Chief.
You are welcome.
Any questions or comments for the Chief? I see your guys and gals out there all the time doing amazing things, Chief, out in the community, and please give them all our best.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you.
All right. Tony, Township Engineer, what do you got for us?
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
Right now, as you can probably see if you drive around, there's construction continuing throughout the township. We are moving forward. Blue Barn Meadows Stage 3. We just had a pre-construction for the third stage of that. And we continue to review plans. Things are still moving. That's all I have.
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments for Tony on things going on in the township? Nice to see that there's action, though. That's good.
Right. Thank you.
Good to see that people are working. All right. I'll add one thing under correspondence and information items. I will note that the Volunteer Fire Subcommittee did meet just this past Monday. We are continuing discussions about the incentive plan and modifications to the incentive plan. We're still continuing those discussions and hope to come to the board with some conclusions by our August meeting. We also discussed the purchase of, and Renee, you might have to help me out, I think it was 3212, one of the fire truck replacements at, it would be at Woodlawn, correct? Am I correct?
Correct. They are, yes,
Okay.
they're still continuing to put together their specs and get bids in, and I do believe they have some bids in, and are making a recommendation on the purchase of a fire truck. So that should be coming at some point in the next few months.
Yes, and then some brief discussions about some different improvements needed at some of the fire stations, which will further come to the board for action via recommendation by the Volunteer Fire Subcommittee once some of the details get finalized with that. Our Fire Commissioner, Chris Kitcheravich, will be working closely with all the stations to address each and every one of those topics so that we can come back to the full board with a detailed recommendation. So I just wanted to report out on that. Commissioner Seton, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I just wanted to give a brief on it, nothing in detail because we haven't finalized anything yet, but is there anything else you'd like to add? I'll take silence. Oh, there he is.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, great. Awesome. Awesome. And that was it for me. I just wanted to report out to the board and the public about that meeting. Anything else under correspondence and information items? All right. Under direction and discussion items, we do have one item. It's the street light petition application with regard to 27 Street between Highland and Penn Street. And I will hand this one over to Chief Dorney again to give a little brief on this and where we stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. We did receive this request for investigation in reference to the lighting scenario in that area. And Officer Jason Grozier went out with his SWT experience and went out and did an assessment of the lighting in the area. And he does, in fact, deem that the lighting is insufficient in that area. I will go through the 7-page report that he submitted, but just to give you an idea, the ground level reading in that location was 0.1 foot candles, which the recommended lighting for any environment like that should be 0.6 foot candles. So it's very deficient in that area. He's got a great report here with recommendations as to fix the situation with lighting depending on the trees in the area and whether or not we want to put street lights on each side of the street or one side of the street. He's even got recommendations on the type of light that would or should be installed. That would be eco-friendly, being LEDs, and also would prevent any of the light disturbance in the neighborhood and or trespass into other properties. So I've got a detailed report. It's been kind of spread out through Randy, Herb, and everybody that needs to see it. But his recommendation is that we do, in fact, increase the lighting in that area.
Very good. I know Jason does a very thorough review of all those things. So
yes,
that's good information. Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this particular application?
I just have a global question. I know that I read recently Carlisle, Pennsylvania actually was replacing a majority of their lights in their borough through a program with PPL. And I wonder if we as a township have looked into that to potentially, go through our township and switch things over to LED. Certainly are much brighter and, saves on our utility bills. Have we ever reached out to them? If not, is that something that, I'm not sure who would do that, but.
Hey, Diane, it's Randy. It's something I can certainly look into. I have a feeling Public Works looked into this a few years ago, but, before I was in this position. So let me do some research kind of in our archives to see if we can find out where we, or if in fact, if it was researched or not. Do it.
So that would be great. Yeah, the article that I read about it was from March of this year, so it was fairly recent that Carlisle Borough was doing this program with PPL. So I thought maybe we could, get onto that if that's something available to us.
I think historically, Randy, I think you're right. I remember having this discussion in the past. Diane, it was probably prior to you coming onto the board. So I think we did have this discussion. I know they had looked into it, but it is possible that some of the program criteria might have changed, and we may have more of an opportunity. So yeah, it could have changed. So we should definitely see if there's something out there, a possibility. Are there any other questions or comments on the particular streetlight application from the board? Any from the public? If there's not, I will make a motion to move forward to have staff work with PPL to install said light in said area. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kelly, motion from Commissioner Morgan. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Robilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton,
Aye.
and Commissioner Morgan.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Chief, and please thank Jason for us. Great job.
I will. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, next on the agenda, we have old business. Renee, I'll let you give the status on Ware's Dam, campus renovation, and credit cards.
All right, thank you. So Ware's Dam, the permit continues in the DEP office, and we have had no word to date on the status of that permit. So again, we continue to wait. As I discussed, it's a 12 to 18 month review period, and we are not 12 months in yet. So not anticipating any correspondence prior to, I would say we wouldn't get anything prior to December at the earliest. So that would only put us at about a year. On the campus renovation project, I believe Steve Carr, I know he sent out a project summary. We are continuing on schedule. The project continues to progress. And in terms of the finances of the project, again, we continue in the contract amounts that were bid and agreed upon, and we have not proceeded through any of our allowances at this point. Under the credit cards, I did send an email out to the board in speaking with, and Steve apologizes for not being here. He did have a family emergency tonight. I did speak with Steve Carr. He is continuing on the testing. There are some glitches between our two systems, which is not allowing the credit cards to process quite the way that we would like them to. So we are going to continue to work at that and marry in the system so that we do not have errors on the processing of bills. So he continues to work with both vendors on getting them to process the correct manner. So that will be, again, he's actively working on it, and he will continue and I will continue to give updates, or he will continue to give the updates on the agenda.
Thank you, Renee. Were there any questions or comments on any of those particular topics from the board? Any from the public? All right. At this point, we will move right into our courtesy of the floor. It's the opportunity for anyone in the audience to approach the board on any non-agenda item. We do have one that has already been pre-scheduled, and we have Mr. Bill Erdman, Ava Tia, and Priya Atia regarding Makunji Manor with exhibits they have for us this evening. So I will open the floor up to Bill, Ava, and Priya. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan and commissioners, and thanks for the opportunity to do this presentation. I know you've had a long meeting, so we'll keep it fairly straightforward. We're here to talk to the board about the possibility of a rezoning of a small tract at 900 South Hillview Road. It's currently an R3 zone, and I'll describe it as an orphan property that basically is on the opposite side of Route 309 from a very, very large R3 zone. And it's basically an undeveloped piece of property, a little over 3 acres. And we're proposing to put part of a campus on this property. And by that, I mean, this is a small tract that is being proposed for an assisted living facility. I should point out it's a 1-story building. I know based on participation in prior meetings, there's been a lot of discussions about building height. This is a 1-story building, so that would not be an issue. But when I describe it as a campus, it's going to include this assisted living building, as well as 2 senior living 3-story buildings in Lower Makunji Township. We actually presented to the Lower Makunji Township Planning Commission last night under a conditional use discussion. I would have to say the meeting was fairly productive. They seem receptive to it. They like the idea of the concept. And we're here to talk to the board about this rezoning from R3 to R5. The big difference between the two is the R5 zoning allows for assisted living. I should point out, as you're aware, there is an approved project in Lower Makunji Township on that property that has sat for quite a few years dormant, has not moved forward. To me, that suggests that it's not a very viable location for residential development. But having said that, the intent is to move forward with both properties, the one in South Whitehall, presumably with the rezoning to allow an assisted living facility, and then to move forward under conditional use in Lower Makunji Township to allow the 2 multi-story senior living apartments. I will say it's comparable to, but not identical to Parkland Manor, which you're very familiar with. It's another facility that's going to provide services for the senior community. We happen to think this one is extremely unique in the sense that it's in a residential area, and there's been a lot of thought and a lot of discussion among the team about how it would be great if this project goes forward to integrate this community, this retirement elderly community, into the surrounding community, given the proximity of many of the single-family homes out there. So we think there's some tremendous opportunities there. As I mentioned a moment ago, and just to stress, it's an orphan property that sits by itself. It really doesn't entail any interface because it's in the opposite side of 309 from all the existing residential development and the remainder of the R3. So it's somewhat orphaned. I suspect, if I had to guess, that maybe the construction of 309 at some point may have cut this off, because having this small R3 remnant on the opposite side of 309 really looks kind of funny on the map. So the request is to change it from an R3 to an R5. The only other thing I would add to that, I understand there have been several zoning requests in the township. I also understand you're in the midst of a very comprehensive plan effort. I would only ask that perhaps this one be looked at differently, only because it's a rather unique situation, whereas in other cases there may be properties being requested where the comprehensive plan may impact them. Just looking at this, at least in my opinion, it would appear that it would not affect this small orphan tract that sits on the other side of 309 adjacent to a very, very large, fully developed R3 zone. So I would be very surprised if it were to be impacted in any way, shape, or form by the comprehensive plan. with that in mind, what I was going to ask is that maybe Priya could take a few moments to just describe the facility in terms of its operation. As I said, it's similar to, but not identical to Parkland Manor, but it's the same concept to provide a campus, if you will, within the 2 townships to serve the elderly community within those townships. So if Priya is there, if she wants to, or Abe, and jump in and just describe a little bit as to what the facility is and how it's going to operate, I think it would be helpful for the board to understand that. And then Gene Berg is also here. I believe George has a couple architectural drawings to give you an idea of what the building would look like, and I know that would be a concern. So you can see the architecturals in terms of what it might look like. But I think it might be good for Priya to maybe describe just the overall campus project, including both of the tracks.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Bill, for the introduction. I'm here. It's Priya and Abatia here. And we just wanted to share a little bit of information, more of the operational side of what we envision for this part of the project. So it would be exactly like what we have currently at Parkland Manor, 1 floor living, mainly personal care, and some residents who are higher acuity. What we call it is our Care Plus level. So it would be a mix of higher acuity personal care and some advanced physical care residents. There would be a small, probably around 15 to 20 bed secured portion of it, just like we have at Parkland Manor, which would be memory care. It would just be high functioning residents. So what we call our high functioning memory care, just they're pleasantly confused, but they need to be in a secured unit just to prevent wandering. But it would be exactly like what we have at Parkland. Yeah, like 1 floor living, no steps, no elevator. All the rooms would surround the dining area and the common area for the residents to use. There would be the staffing and all the other amenities that Parkland Manor provides at the building as well.
And if I could add, hi everybody. It's basically, we footprinted the same footprint that we have currently built, and it was phase 1, and we added the addition on. This time it's going to be built as one whole building. So the memory care will be connected to the main portion of the building, and we're basically going to three levels of care: personal care, Care Plus, and a memory care section. And the good thing about this is that on the other side of the road in Lower Macungie is going to be independent living and personal care. So it develops as a life care center, and the best thing about it is that it's walking distance to Lehigh Valley Hospital, and it's in a residential neighborhood. Where we're at now in South Whitehall is beautiful. It's exposure. It's on a 25-acre campus. Here we have about 14 acres. It's going to have amenities, a clubhouse, and all the good things, but it's not going to have the amenities that Parkland Manor has with the indoor walking path, the pickleball courts that are already done, the bingo party room that's built. So some of our independent living residents here are going to be able to come over to Parkland Manor and enjoy our amenities in there. So we're building another community. And Lower Macungie is a beautiful place to live. They don't have any independent living over there. So it's the independent living on the Macungie side is a 3-story building. At Parkland Manor, independent living is 4-story. So but it's also going to look the same that we presented. So you could say this new building, hopefully the board will allow us to rezone. It's a copycat of exactly what you see, the same stone, the same siding, the same width, the same height, the same length. So if you like what you saw at Parkland Manor with the 4 tennis courts that fell down, it's going to be built exactly the same footprint, same width, because we feel the resident that's in their room and they walk 6 or 8 feet to their dining table 3 times a day. Yeah. Nobody may have anything that, where you have a big common area and your rooms are attached to it. So we think we have the nicest product in Pennsylvania when it comes to personal care and memory care. It's you have all your amenities, all your food and your activities right there, and your room is connected to it, which allows us to get 58. We have 58 rooms being built there. It's the exact same count we have on the other South Whitehall campus. So,
And what's awesome is it's really great safety-wise for the residents, just because they are all surrounding the dining room area. Just like we have at Parkland Manor, employees are able to see them and help them with their care needs 24/7. So it provides that visibility to one floor living as well.
and we feel one good thing about South Whitehall, we're trying to keep the residents of South Whitehall in South Whitehall. So they don't, there's a big project being built at Emmaus right now by Phoebe, and they're going to try and steal your residents on you. So the more independent, the more personal care that's at South Whitehall. There's a competitive CCRC being built in Macungie by Phoebe. I mean, not in Macungie, in Emmaus. It's a huge project. And they're, you know, they try and steal a lot of your South Whitehall residents and go over to Emmaus and become residents in there. We're saying, no, stay in South Whitehall. We want you, you were brought up, lived all your life in South Whitehall. We want you to stay in your township so all your friends and family can visit you. They don't got to travel to Emmaus to visit. So we feel this is a real good project for South Whitehall and the residents of South Whitehall. It also helps in the Lower Macungie campus that we have, when the residents in the independent and personal care start to deteriorate, they can stay in the campus. Husband starts to deteriorate, wife's in good shape, wife's independent, husband might need memory care. So they can still be on the same campus together and not be separated, which is a good thing that we do at Saucon Valley Manor, and we're starting to develop that at Parkland Manor. It's sort of so couples are not separated.
So, and if I could just clarify for the record, what's on the screen right now are the 3-story senior living buildings in Lower Macungie. And as I said early on, the building in South Whitehall Township will be single story. But we thought you might want to see the entire campus.
Yeah, it's Bill and Priya and Abe. It's definitely unique, and it's interesting concept between South Whitehall and Lower Mac. You know, Bill, you brought up a point which, you know, obviously has been a point of discussion at many of our meetings when developments come in about our comprehensive plan. And I have to agree. I think some things we have to look at somewhat independently. Our comprehensive plan is a guidance document. This is something very specific and has the potential to have little or no impact with a zoning change. I don't know that for sure, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, certainly the rest of the board can opine on this, but I would think it's worthwhile to send this to our staff, George and his team, to take a look at and see if it's something that makes sense for the township as a whole, and, you know, give it that opportunity for review. That would be my suggestion, for sure.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm Gene Berg from Galk Architects. Do you have me on screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. We're now taking a look at the aerial photograph, and you can see the 1-story building is on the right-hand side of that aerial photograph, closest to I-78, and that's the portion of the site that is located in South Whitehall Township. And then the other 2 3-story buildings are located just to the left of that. Those are in Lower Macungie Township. The 1-story, as Abe had mentioned, is identical design to the Parkland Manor. It's a first-class design building with stone gables. We have hardy plank lap siding and hardy trims. We have 100 units inside that, or I should say 100 beds inside that 1-story facility, just like very similar to Parkland Manor. And then the other 2 3-story buildings, those were the ones that you saw the rendering that was given from street level that represented that. We also have a 5,400 square foot clubhouse that is on the site. So we think it would be very beneficial to the township, and it is an appropriate use that fits in with the fabric of the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. And while that's on the screen, if you look at that 1-story building you just referred to, I think it really drives home my earlier point about being an orphan property. If you can picture that the footprint of that property surrounds that 1-story building, you can see 309 I-78. The remainder of the R3 that's fully developed is on the other side of the highway. So you can really see very clearly how this is an orphan piece of property that really, quite frankly, lends itself to this project very nicely.
And it's not going to be an orphan if it joins the Lower Macunzie.
No, I meant orphan, Abe, in the sense that it's orphan from the rest of the R3 in South Whitehall.
I agree with you. From the South Whitehall, the Route 309 I-78 makes it an orphan that Lower Macunzie is going to adopt. It's
Right,
going to be
but it'll serve both communities. It's close enough. It's just the idea that it's a unique property in its location.
You could call it an island. You could call it an island instead of an orphan. An orphan is more
Okay.
of a negative. It's more of an island by itself, separated from the district, separated by an
Okay, I stand corrected. It's an island.
Bill's an engineer, don't they? You got to put a marketing click to this, Bill. It's an island.
South Whitehall Township Island.
Okay.
So
later next vacation.
Are there any questions or comments from the board on this concept? Which really that's what it is. It's a courtesy of the floor item. Were there any questions or feedback from the board? Not hearing any.
The project looks very nice, Mr. Attia. I like it.
Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate it.
Again, I come back to my comment that I just think I think based on your brief presentation, which was extremely thorough, I recommend we send it to staff for a deeper review and then a recommendation back to the full board for consideration for a zoning modification, if that's the direction that the staff definitely gathers their information towards. Is there, I don't believe we need to make a motion on that. Joe, do you believe we need to make a motion on that, or it's just a recommendation, it's a direction, isn't it?
Making a direction item is certainly fine because there'd be no formal action taken.
Okay. Is the board in general agreement to, allow Bill and the Attias to move forward to give their information to staff for further review and then potential recommendation to the board?
This is Mike Wolf. I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Stetton, you I think you agreed. Yes?
No, I said it was very beautiful, but yes, I do agree.
Commissioner Kelly and Commissioner Mobilio?
Well, I thank the Attias for their presentation tonight, and Mr. Erdman, certainly you've done a wonderful job at the Parker Manor. So I would have no objection to sending this to staff.
I didn't catch that, and you were really broken up.
I wanted to thank Steve, Attia, and Priya. Getting a lot of feedback on my mic. And thanking Mr. Erdman for the presentation tonight. They have done a wonderful job at Park Center. So I would be in favor of allowing staff to take a look at this.
All right, very good. Commissioner Mobilio? If anybody else is on, if you could put your mics on mute if you're not speaking, that would be super great. Thank you. Commissioner Mobilio?
Yes,
He gave a thumbs up.
A thumbs up.
Oh, he did. Okay. Okay. So,
This is George, real quick, Commissioner Morgan. If it pleases the commission, what we'll do too, if that's indeed the direction, is we'll try and turn this around pretty quickly. So I know you don't meet again for another 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll try and get a recommendation back up to you by the end of next week, so that you have something from us and in the way of our evaluation.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George. Bill and Priya and Abe, first I'll open it up. Were there any other comments or thoughts? Although this is a courtesy of the floor item, it doesn't need feedback. Did Bill, Priya, Abe, do you guys have anything else you want to add or questions?
I just wanted to thank the board for your support of this. I think we're all going to be very proud of this when it's finished. I'm personally very excited about this project. I think it's going to be great. But I thank the board for your support in allowing this to move forward.
Yeah, I agree with what Bill said. It's all honestly always a pleasure working with you guys. We always enjoy working with South Whitehall Township and at Parkland Manor. I have some pictures actually I want to send you guys of some exciting things we've been doing over there. But we do really appreciate your support with everything, and we are excited for this new project.
And I want to thank you all too also. And we're proud to announce Parkland Manor has been COVID-free from day one. We haven't had one case of a staff or resident having COVID. Can you imagine that? Like we protect our residents in the township, and we're responsible for them. So with 24 hours, we watch over them, and we love Parkland Manor and building our independent living soon there on the campus. And this project's, it's probably 12 months to a year out. I mean, I'll say 12 months, 18 months out before we break ground. There's a lot of work going through if the board approves the rezoning request, starting the land development. But Parkland Manor, the current facility, will be filled before this probably even breaks ground. So we're going to aggressively move forward on this project. So we really thank you all for the positive direction right now.
Thank you so much. Seriously.
So
Have a great evening, everybody.
I can mend fences by saying thank you for considering rezoning our island. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
We look forward to feedback from staff and hearing from you again. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
You got it. Was there anybody else, Renee, for courtesy of the floor this evening?
I don't believe so, Tori. I'm having trouble with the chat since I'm sharing my screen, but I don't believe there were any others.
All right. That being said, I have our invoices and purchasing requisitions have been reviewed by the township manager and the director of finance. We do need a motion to authorize that our checks be issued to pay our bills as tabulated. Do I hear said motion? Do I hear a motion? It is so broke up.
I'll make the motion.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Seton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Mobilio. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Renee?
Commissioner Walk,
Aye.
Commissioner Mobilio,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Seton,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye, motion carries. We have no executive session planned for this evening. I do need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Kelly. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Seton. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Have a lovely evening.
Have a good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks for joining.
Everybody.
Stay safe.